नमस्कार। और्ष की इस श्रृंखला में आपका स्वागत है और हमारे साथ हैं आज डॉक्टर मधुसूदन पाल, जिन्होंने नेताजी और आज़ाद हिंद फौज पे एक लंबे समय तक शोध किया है। हमारा उनके साथ आज का विषय है नेताजी और प्लानिंग कमीशन। क्यों? क्योंकि नेताजी ने आज़ाद भारत के पुनर्निर्माण के लिए, उसके औद्योगिकरण के लिए, उसके विकास के लिए सबसे पहले प्लानिंग कमेटी का निर्माण किया था जब वो कांग्रेस के अध्यक्ष थे। किस प्रकार इसका निर्माण हुआ, कौन कौन लोग इसमें शामिल थे, सुनिए डॉक्टर एम एस पाल की ज़बानी।
Subhash Chandra in the early days, basically a spiritualist man. Subsequently, he came into politics under situation compulsion. Nation building was primary in his mind. Even in 1930s, when he was in exile in Europe, in his writings and speeches, we see his concept of nation building and planning. What he is telling? That one day British will go from India. India will be free, independent. Then suddenly it will not be possible for the rulers, new government, to plan for the development of the country. And planning should be made from before. If you are not prepared with your plannings from before independence, then there will be a long gap between taking the rule in your hand and starting the projects. Rather, be prepared from before. From now on, you put research workers in each discipline, like for agriculture, for industry. Industry can be big industry, medium scale industry, small industry, agriculture. For each sector, health, population, army, India will need a defense to protect itself. For each sector, from now on, we will put our young scholars into research to keep all the plans from before. The moment British will go, without any delay, we will start our activation of our projects. That's the idea from 1930s on record. This should be clearly seen in the volume of Kitty Kurti, Netaji Subhash Chandra, as I saw him, early days, 1930s. Then in 38, when he was Congress All India President, he was invited to a meeting in Science College, Calcutta, by scientist Meghnad Saha, who was at that time, he was a professor in physics department, Allahabad University. He was senior to Subhash Bose, and Subhash Bose was at that time Congress president. He was invited to a meeting of Science Journalist Association Conference, and this concept was also of scientist Meghnad Saha. In that meeting, there was a discussion between Meghnad Saha and Subhash Chandra, and planning concept was further crystallized. And then Meghnad Saha went to Shantiniketan to meet Kavi Guru Rabindranath Tagore. Further crystallization of the concept of the planning commission. And Kavi Guru told to Subhash Chandra, as he has become the Congress president, to start in India in the Congress plan, because Congress will be the ruler subsequently, All India Party. As Congress president, he is in a position to give a shape to the planning. And this was encouraged also by Acharya P.C. Rai, scientist, and the famous famous engineers come scientist Sir Visvesvaraya of Mysore, who is the first architect of Mysore hydroelectric dam in India, and you will see his personal collections of the instruments, that is his museum, massive museum of engines in Mysore, in Bangalore. And actually the planning concept caught the imagination of the intelligentsia of India. For the first time after many centuries, India is thinking of rebuilding the nation on modern techniques. And actually this concept of planning to the mind of scientist Meghnad Saha came from the 5-year planning of the USSR, because USSR is the country which in a very short period the communist Russia advanced itself. That caught the imagination of the intelligentsia all over the world. Also, though his party was a very hard party, to some extent very much bad against the Jews, but its scientific plannings on Germany to restructure the war-torn Germany, these plannings also, things inspired from different angles, because these persons are very free-minded persons. They are finding good components on different parts of the world. How USSR doing, how Germany is doing, how England is doing, how the other European countries doing. And Netaji, in this period of exile for four years, 1933 and up to 37, he is visiting all countries in the Europe and picking up their ideas in scientific developments, and that gathered together in this concept of the planning, and he introduced the Planning Commission in 1938. And initially he considered Sir Visvesvaraya to be the chairman of the Planning Commission, but suddenly scientist Meghnad Saha came. Subhas, if you appoint Sir Visvesvaraya as the chairman of the Planning Commission, all your projects and plans will remain theoretical as thesis papers in your library. It will not be executed, because ultimately it is the politicians who will execute that. And Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi is against any planning. He will never accept any industrialization, any modern concept. And it will be very difficult to execute your plans. And if you bring Visvesvaraya as the president of the Planning Commission, your enmity with Gandhi will increase. Now, better pick up some persons in between which will not create anger in the mind of Gandhi, so that there is less enmity. To some extent, Gandhi will be able to will tolerate it and swallow it, and that in between man it Nehru. This was the brain, this was the thinking of Meghnad Saha. Naturally, Subhash Chandra, though he was very sorry that he has to discard the name of Visvesvaraya, very respected man intellectually and as an engineer, scientist all over the world, country. Then Subhash Chandra wrote personally to Nehru. Nehru was at that time in London. Nehru agreed, because Nehru liked posts, positions. Nehru took the post of chairman, though initially Subhash Chandra, then he handed over the post to Nehru. And few meetings were there, and the plannings in India and first meetings of all the chief ministers of, at that time chief ministers were called the prime ministers, and each state has, because India has got provincial autonomy in the year 37, and each state has got prime minister and state industry ministers. There are the meetings, and these meetings were chaired by Subhash Chandra. In those meetings, plannings, the basic formula, because if in two adjacent states same factory is created, where will be the consumers' goods will be sold? There will be competition, unnecessary. There should be coordination. If coal is there, iron ore is there, there should be coordination. That demands the coordination of the states. That demands the coordination between the two ministries of the states. That's why at this country level, national level, there need be a planning commission. and then each state-wise planning commissions, these are the ideas. In this way, he is the beginner of the, in that way, concept of planning in India. And subsequent, and the first secretary of the planning commission was H.V. Kamath. H.V. Kamath is the second man in India who resigned from ICS. Subhash Chandra is the first man who resigned 1920, and H.V. Kamath resigned in 38, I think. He resigned and following, respecting Subhash Bose, and he joined as secretary of the planning commission. That is the beginning of planning, concept of planning and planning commission in India.